really shook them.
And the trauma can be like a little T trauma or a big T trauma.
Yeah.
It could be a small thing. Their dad left.
Yeah.
Or it could be something bigger, more horrific.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we see is there is this interpretation of stress. And people think stress is all fight or flight. And we should try to de-stress and take a hot bubble bath. But we actually evolved to manage and mitigate stress as humans. We're much stronger than we recognize. And there are additional stress responses that we don't talk about. And we know from work out of Stanford and other individuals' labs that what you believe about an experience is how your physiology will show up about that experience. So for example, there was a hotel caretaker study, so you could call it a maid study, where they looked at two groups of housekeepers. One group, they said, what you're doing is amazing. You are definitely getting physical activity. Here's all the positives. And the other group, they just went about their day and, maybe they were told that they should do physical activity or not. But at the end of the housekeeper study, those individuals that were told that what they were doing was in part like physical activity showed low, and that they didn't need to do any more, but what they were doing was amazing. Those individuals had lower blood pressure, they had better glucose regulation, better insulin, they had lost a little bit of weight, and it was all their interpretation of the environment they were in. We tell people that the world is so stressful and that everything, your internal response is fight or flight. But we have one word to describe a million different things, and we call that stress. I'll give you an example. A pet dies, or you have a white sofa and your kids just spilled coffee all over it. Or you break up with a loved one, or there's a death of a spouse. We have one word, and we call that stress. That's it. We have one word to define a million different things. We live in an environment where people talk about, I'm so stressed, and this is stressful, but that we don't have any other word in the English language to globally define something. Maybe that word could be love. Not really, not in the way that we talk about stress. So people think about stress as fight or flight. That severely limits both their physiology and their capacity. The other two stress responses, which are much more enhancing, is tend and befriend, which releases oxytocin, which makes people more capable. It makes them more connected. This is they are stressed, yet they go to help other people immediately. That's also a stress response. Or the courage response. The courage response, we see that with a lot of military operators. A moment of stress, they're immediately taking action. I'll give you an example. If both myself and my husband were getting ready to jump out of a plane, I would be terrified, and he would be excited to do it. He would be eliciting courage. We're both in the same experience, but he is having one of courage, and I am having one of fight or flight. When we both jump out of the airplane, who do you think is going to be more capable to get up and do the next thing?
Your husband.
That's right. I would still be in this fear response, probably take me at least a couple hours to recalibrate, if not a day or a week, whereas he has a response which is courageous and can be cultivated. His capacity to then not only experience new things, but continue on will mitigate much of the physiological damage that would happen from these other fight or flight responses. And what I would say to that is fear is a normal response, but having courage is a choice.
You must have met people in your practice that walk in and they've got some kind of trauma which has led to their state of sort of unworthiness. How does one do anything about that when you can't go back and right the wrongs of their past? And, I don't know how much you want to dig into their psychology and become their therapist to try and unpack some of that stuff.